Gentlemen, good evening. My name is Ellen Wasfy of the League of Women Voters of Delaware, and I will be your moderator this evening. On behalf of the League and its co-hosts, the American Association of University Women, Dover Branch, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, Central Delaware Branch number 2028, the Central Delaware Alumni Council of the National Panhellenic Council, and Restoring Central Dover. It is my pleasure to welcome you to a virtual candidates night for 2020. Let me stress that the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that does not support or oppose any candidate or political party. Tonight's program will afford us the opportunity to hear a discussion of issues and opinions, which will enable us to make more informed choices on Election Day. This evening, candidates for U.S. Senator and U.S. Representative were invited to participate in a forum. Unfortunately, the incumbents for both of these offices declined the invitation to appear. However, their opponents representing the Republican, Libertarian, and Independent Party of Delaware are here to share their views with us. Let us turn to the format of this evening's debate. The candidates will have 2 minutes for their opening statements, outlining issues of particular importance to their campaigns. A League of Women Voters member, Dr. Phyllis Edamatsu and Carolyn Brinkley, will act as timekeepers. They will notify the candidates when you have 15 seconds left and when your time is up. In fairness to all the candidates, we request that you observe these time limits. The initial speaking order was determined beforehand through the method of random choice by the League of Women Voters Candidates Night Committee. Following the initial presentations, the candidates will have the opportunity to respond to questions sent in by the public via email prior to tonight's event and questions posed by the League of Women Voters on its Vote 411 website. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer each question and 1 minute for rebuttal if desired, but they are limited to 1 rebuttal per question per candidate. All candidates will have the chance to respond to each question, and we ask them to direct their comments to the viewing audience and not to each other. One final word regarding tonight's presentation.
Potato chips are over
Organizing such an event
there.
would not have been possible without the conscientious efforts of civic-minded citizens who spend hundreds of hours planning and attending to details. Our gratitude goes to the League of Women Voters Candidates Night Committee, Gail White and Dr. Mary Kay Eggers, who contacted and followed up with the candidates directly, Joan and Fred Brookelman, who formatted and issued the letters of invitation and debate guidelines to all the candidates, Beverly Jackson, who coordinated candidate responses and fielded questions from the public, and Dr. Marianne Coe and Chandra Owens contributed their technology expertise to enable us to host and publicize this virtual forum. We would also like to recognize the leadership of our co-hosts, Carol Jones, President of the League of Women Voters of Delaware, Janet Tomaszewski, President of AAUW Dover, Ann Smith, President of the Central Delaware Branch of the NAACP, Chandra Owens, President of the Central Delaware Panhellenic Alumni Council, and Shonda Jackson, President of Restoring Central Dover, for volunteering their organizations to co-sponsor this event. And now, let me introduce the candidates for United States Senate and United States Representative.
Excuse me, Ellen.
Yeah.
One of our candidates left after you said that the one of the candidates wasn't there, so we do not have anyone to go against Lee Murphy. I'm sorry, Mr. Murphy.
I'm here. I'm
Oh.
here.
No, Catherine Purcell is here.
It's
Oh.
it's Lauren Witzke dropped because Chris
Lauren
Coons.
Okay, that's who it was. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mark.
Yep. I hope that means that I'm not out.
Does Ms. Witzke leave?
Paper towels over here
He
someplace.
did.
Did.
It looks like it.
Do you want me to,
On the
uh,
couch.
I'm terribly sorry, because of the rules, let me back up a little bit.
Oh.
Let me back up a little bit because at the time, I did not mention this rule that we have to abide by because I didn't anticipate this situation. But let me inform you of the rules that we have to abide by. The League of Women Voters is required to abide by regulations set forth by the Federal Elections Commission, the Federal Communications Commission, and the Internal Revenue Service. These regulations are intended to ensure nonpartisanship by nonpartisan groups sponsoring appearances of candidates running for public office. Consequently, should only one candidate for a particular office be present, we cannot provide the opportunity for him or her to address the audience as part of the formal debate. There must always be at least 2 points of view represented for each office. And unfortunately, I did not anticipate this happening, but I have to apologize to Mr. Turley. This is an unfortunate situation which we did not anticipate, but these are the rules that the League of Women Voters has to abide by.
Ellen, can I ask one question? Would I be able to at least make my opening statement? So people know-
Unfortunately not, because that would be interpreted by these federal agencies as supporting one person's campaign. And we are as hamstrung by these regulations as you are. And unfortunately, we have to abide by them. But I appreciate your being here, and we hope you will stay for the rest of the evening.
Yeah.
No,
But unfortunately, we can't allow you to participate.
Okay,
It's unfortunate. We are as upset about this as you are.
no, I don't think you are. I think I'm about as upset as I possibly can be because this is constant in the state of Delaware. This is the way people operate. I'm
I
not blaming
don't
you,
blame
Ellen.
you.
Ellen, totally not blaming you and your organization. I understand. I read the rules thoroughly. I understand it completely. It's just ridiculous when, she was actually on and prepared. And as soon as she heard that Chris Coons wasn't going to be on, which we all know he was not going to be on, he made that announcement a long time ago. She got off. So,
Well,
I'm fine. I'm fine.
No, I sympathize with you. I really do. And unfortunately, I wish I could do more to allow you to participate, but we cannot. And
appreciate it.
these are the rules that we have to abide by. It's called the empty chair rule, and we can't support one candidate and give them the venue.
I'm
So
going
we
to,
will now turn,
Ellen,
unfortunately.
I'm going to bounce out because I don't think it's fair that I'm even on the screen.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all of the cooperation you showed in organizing this event and for showing up. We appreciate your presence here, and we hope that at some point you will be able to participate and air your views on these very important issues. Thank you, Mr. Turley. We appreciate you.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
She isn't going to be there to begin with.
All right, we will turn now to our candidates.
Can I ask a question? There's someone here that is not muted and we can hear them talking.
Could you please mute your computer? All right, we will turn now to our candidates for United States Representative. Did Mr. Rogers show up, Mr. David Rogers? I don't see him here. Well, then we have,
no, he did not. He did not show up.
all right, we have Ms. Purcell and Mr. Lee Murphy. So we'll start out with Catherine Purcell, independent, and you may give your opening statement at the present time. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Catherine Stone Street Purcell, Independent Party of Delaware candidate for U.S. House of Representatives, and I am honored and inspired to be with you here this evening. Since I retired from 32 years of real estate and mortgage banking, I've spent the last 7 years laughing with you, crying with you, but most importantly, listening to you. I have completed over 55,000 rideshare rides which means I've had the blessing of speaking to 250,000 of you one-on-one and in small groups. We have spoken about drug abuse, violence within our cities, healthcare, daycare, unfair treatment by employers, government overreach, and personal relationships. Some of you are police who work the front lines, or soldiers trying to adapt after fighting bloody wars. Some are nursing home patients and staff exhausted from living in a broken system. I've spoken to students and teachers frustrated with our education system, factory workers and firefighters, scientists, and even a Nobel Prize winner in astrophysics. I've gone into both the rich and the poor neighborhoods, the cities and the farms, from pro athletes to those who aspire to be in the NFL, NBA, or major leagues. I have heard your voice. I listen to the actors and the singers, bartenders and alcoholics, doctors and lawyers, pet groomers and veterinarians, truck drivers and mechanics, pilots and stewards, small business owners and corporate executives. There were preachers who blessed me and lost souls who I blessed. I spoke to the fast food and convenience store staff who have to deal with belligerent late night party goers, morticians and hairdressers, both with an artistic ability to make people beautiful. I spoke to convicts and those wrongfully in prison, as well as their loved ones. There were painters and carpenters, drywall experts, and those that specialize in intricate tile work, builders and realtors, lenders, and those in need of food. From the homeless coming out of boarded up abandoned properties to those stepping off your yachts, I listen to what concerns you. You are from every national origin, every creed, and every
Thank
sexual
you very much,
orientation.
Ms. Purcell. You will be able to follow up on these ideas as we do the Q&A. So you will have a chance to continue your thought at that time.
Thank
Right
you.
now, we turn to Mr. Lee Murphy, Republican.
Good evening, everyone, and I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this debate, and I'd also like to thank Ms. Purcell for being here so we could have our debate. I am the Republican candidate for the United States Congress here in Delaware. A brief bio: I have lived in Delaware my entire adult life. 4 children, 3 grandchildren. I started my career here as a school teacher and coach. Later, I moved on to the railroad, where I worked for 35 years, starting as a track laborer, moving up, becoming a train conductor and locomotive engineer, a career I thoroughly enjoyed. A little bit about my platform. I support the Constitution. I support the Second Amendment. I support a strong economy. I support our veterans. I support legal immigration and secure borders. I support long-term treatment for addicts who want to turn their lives around. But I really want to discuss something that's important to all of us right now. Our country is divided. And this is personal to me. I have a biracial family. I have begun the discussions with my 13-year-old biracial grandson about race in this country. It's important as he ventures out into the world, whether he is judged by his skin or the content of his character. These discussions are important, and we need to have these discussions nationwide at a time where our nation is kind of ripped apart. I believe in our country. We are the greatest country in the world, and we have untold potential. I look forward to the debate tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. We will now turn to our questions for this evening. We'll start with the first question, and we'll start out with Mr. Murphy. What policies do you support to improve and secure elections and voting in our country? You will have 1 minute to respond to this question.
Yes, I think it's
Mr. Murphy.
yes. Well, first of all, I'd like to talk about our current situation that we have. We have a situation where we have mail-in ballots. I have stated clearly that I am against mail-in ballots. We had a system in place, absentee ballots, for many, many years, where our veterans, our service people from around the world have voted in every election. Mail-in ballots, I feel that is open to fraud, and I don't think it's needed. We have absentee ballots in place. I think people, if they can safely go to the polls, I think they should go safely to the polls this election next Tuesday. The primary election proved that it was safe to go to the polls and vote in person. So the sanctity and the security of our elections is the bedrock of our society. And we need to make sure that every vote from everybody counts in this important election.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Ms. Purcell.
Hello, I agree that we have a grave problem with our election system. And I do agree that people need to be at the polls. We also have a problem with ballots being printed from China and IDs that are coming in from China, which look exactly like our driver's licenses. So somehow we have to conquer the problem of the fake IDs and the fake ballots that are being mailed out. The only way to really do it would be to actually show up at the ballots. So I agree in the fact that we do have a major problem with voter fraud, and it needs to be addressed.
Actually, both of you anticipated the next question, which is an overlap from the question you just answered, which came in. This year, Delawareans can vote by mail due to COVID-19. Would you support federal legislation? And I think you've already pretty much answered this question, but proceed. Would you support federal legislation continuing the vote by mail option for future elections nationwide? And would you make any modifications to the current mail-in voting process if you approve of it? We'll start out with Ms. Purcell this time.
I do not support the mail-in voting. And the only thing that I could see that would work is if we had fingerprints that could verify whether the vote was, the ballot was correct. Because there's just a lot of fraud going on, which we need to address. People had ballots mailed to their house and they didn't even live at the property. People didn't live at the property for multiple years. So mail-in ballot voting is a huge issue, and it's just ripe with fraud, and I do not support it at all.
Thank you, Ms. Purcell. Mr. Murphy.
Yes, as I stated, personally, I'm against mail-in ballots. But I think this is an issue, it's not a federal issue. I think it should be done state by state. And the states can decide whether they want to continue vote by mail or not. It's up to the citizens of every state, really.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. We move on to the political process right now. Please explain where you see opportunities for different political parties to find common ground on the serious issues facing this country. And we'll start out with Mr. Murphy this time.
Well, I think that we should find common ground on each and every issue that we faced as a country. You know, I was, as a former teacher, a former coach, you know, I listened. I listened to my students, I listened to my players, I listened to administrators. I think it's important, you know, I always have found common ground in any issue in my career, professional and otherwise. We need to really bring people together. And I do have that skill. I've proven that in my career. And when I go to Washington, D.C., I certainly would like to bring Republicans and Democrats, all parties together.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Ms. Purcell, same question.
Baby boomers have reached 74 years old this year. So that means 21.9% of the population is going to need critical care. The generations following I do not believe are prepared to handle this, the seniors needing the critical care. So this could create a major crisis that we would all need to have all hands on deck for. So I do believe that our education system needs to be revamped, and that children are not being educated. They're graduating not knowing how to multiply, divide, add, subtract, and this is a problem. So I hope that we can find common ground in developing programs for the children. In 1997, I developed after-school programs where we picked children up from school, made them do their homework, checked their homework, and then gave them their martial arts lessons. All students went to honors. So programs such as this need to be implemented in Delaware, and hopefully we'll find common ground on that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Purcell. Moving on to a different critical issue that is faced by this country. What, if any, steps will you propose to reform the current immigration policies? And we'll start out with Ms. Purcell this time.
Well, one of the problems with our immigration is that we've had people in this country since 1980 and before that have come and been here illegally, yet they were permitted to work. So it seems like such an easy solution to say, just go back home now, but it's actually been 40 years. So I do believe that maybe we could have an employer sponsor for some of the people that have been here, set their roots down, and they have family here, to allow for those people to have a pathway to citizenship. So in that sense, that I would be looking at an immigration reform that permitted the people who have their roots here because of previous governments that didn't, that allowed them to come in, to just have a pathway to citizenship here.
Thank you very much, Ms. Purcell. Mr. Murphy.
Yes, this is an important question. I do believe in secure borders, and I do wholeheartedly support legal immigration. During my campaign for the past year, I've met many proud legal immigrants in this country. And there is a pathway that they took, a difficult pathway to become US citizens. And I feel all people need to follow that pathway legally. Now, when we talk about the people that have been in this country for years, many years, coming here as children many years ago with their parents who came here illegally and broke our laws, I feel that after people that have broken our laws, paid a penalty, gone through the proper immigration process, there should be a pathway to legal citizenship. We are a compassionate nation, and many people have been serving in the military or working, helping our country, but they should not go ahead of legal immigrants. There should be a pathway to citizenship for the people that have been here, especially the children that have been raised here and grown up here. We are a compassionate nation, but everyone has to follow the law.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. Another issue which is in the front, in the headlines and in the front of our consciousness these days. What policies do you support to address gun violence in America? Start out with Mr. Murphy.
Yes, another very important issue. I support the Second Amendment, and I support that. It's in our Constitution. I wholeheartedly support people that are legally able to own guns. We have a problem with people in our society that the mentally ill, where guns, sometimes illegal guns, get in the hands of people that really should not have a gun. We should have laws to prevent people that are or have a history of mental illness. They should not, of course, be able to own a gun. But I support the Second Amendment, and I stand by it.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Ms. Purcell.
I too support the Second Amendment. I do believe with school shootings that they may be able to be prevented by having a surveillance system on the outside of the school, on the perimeter of the school, so that they can see if anyone is coming onto the school grounds and take appropriate action. I don't see where we would ever be able to get rid of all the illegal guns on the street. I do know that there were 29 shootings in Wilmington in the first 2 weeks in October. This is a travesty. So these kids were not in school, not being supervised, and the gangs picked them up. My dream is a 24/7 facility for the children, because I believe if you keep them occupied and engaged, then they will avoid a lot of getting into the criminal activity that causes the violence.
Thank you, Ms. Purcell. Next question, another big issue that we have to deal with on a daily basis. What actions do you propose to address the threats facing this country from climate change? We'll start out with Ms. Purcell.
Well. So humans are the only animal that build their house on the edge of the ocean, and then when the wind comes and the storm comes and it destroys their house, they blame it on climate change, blame it on man-made climate change. But the world is moving. We started with Pangea, which was one continent, and then we broke out into multiple continents. So we're constantly in motion. And I do believe that we need an architectural design that deals with that constant motion. Back in the day when they built bridges, they didn't build flex in the bridge. So the first bridges that were built just went psh, and then blew up. And that's because they didn't have flex. So I would believe we have to look at architectural design to help us have properties that aren't destroyed with weather.
Thank you very much, Ms. Purcell. Mr. Murphy.
Yes, on climate change, first of all, I believe in clean water and clean air. And I think in the last couple of decades in the United States has made great strides in cleaning up its environment, cleaning up our water and cleaning up our air. As far as climate change goes, I wholeheartedly support federal funding for research and development. I think we need more research in terms of climate change, more concrete evidence. State mandates, we have found out here in the state of Delaware, they do reduce emissions. And that is per the Cesarati Institute right here in Delaware. So federally funded research and development, state mandates for emissions, I support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. The next few questions that we have that came in have to do with race relations in this country. The first question is, do you believe that racial inequity exists in the United States? And if so, what can we do to reduce or eliminate it? Mr. Murphy.
Yes, without question, I believe that there are racial inequities in our country. I think in my lifetime, we have come a long, long way in the United States. You know, I grew up in the 1960s where racial injustice throughout our country was in full bloom. And I think in my lifetime, we have come a long way. Does it still exist? Yes, it still exists. Do we have a ways to go? Yes, we do have a ways to go, but we have to come together. Our country right now is divided. We have people that do not want to come together. We have to bring police together. We have to bring the communities together. We have to sit down and talk. Taking down statues, destroying public property, businesses does not solve this problem. Yes, it does exist. We've come a long way. We have a ways to go. And when I go to Washington, I'll work towards solving racial injustice in this country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. Ms. Purcell.
I do believe that we have an issue with racism. However, when somebody calls somebody racist, if they are racist, it's easy to prove. They might have a KKK outfit. But if you're not racist, then it's very difficult to prove that you're not racist. Like if I take a picture of somebody that's black and I'm white, that doesn't prove that I'm not racist. And for this very reason, the enemy of the people of the United States use this as a way to divide us. They use racism to, how do you divide a United States made up of different colors, different creeds, different sexual orientations? You divide them by getting them to fight each other. And so this is what is happening with, we have to come to the realization that we are being attacked from the outside. So I do believe that there is racial discrimination on both sides, but the only way that we are going to move forward is if we are able to put this behind us and move forward as one nation under God.
Thank you, Ms. Purcell. The next is a related question. How would you respond to a constituent who advocates white supremacy? Ms. Purcell.
I would tell them that they're on the wrong path in life, that to think that you are superior over any other human being is absolutely ludicrous. God made us different for a reason. God makes every single flower different. And so he gives us different skin colors because that's his beautiful creation. We are never going to look alike. We are never going to act alike. We are never going to have the same exact views on everything. We have to embrace each other's diversity and accept that. would you really want everybody to look the same when you walked out the door? To me, diversity is a beautiful thing. We are able to enjoy the person's look or whatever they're wearing. Like, it's just, I would not support white supremacy.
Thank you very much, Ms. Purcell. Mr. Murphy.
Yes, as I mentioned in my opening, I have a biracial family, and I have had conversations with my wonderful 13-year-old grandson. Look, I'm against discrimination, hate speech of any sort in this country, against injustice of any kind. One of the reasons I'm running for Congress is to speak for those who don't have a voice. And that would include my 13-year-old grandson. So yes, I am firmly against any injustice, any discrimination, or any hateful speech of any kind.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. The next question is also related to this issue, and it's a little bit more specific. There is currently legislation proposed in Congress to declare racism a public health crisis because basic physical and mental health care is not readily available to many minorities in this country. It asks the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to develop a research base in the science and practice of anti-racism to determine the effect of this disparity on health care for minorities. What would be your view on this proposed legislation? Mr. Murphy.
Well, number one, as I said earlier, we've come a long way in race relations in our country in my lifetime, a real long way. Now, I am for any particular group of our country that has health disparities. We need to fund those disparities. I get that. But to base this on race, totally on race, no, I just don't feel that that's a great idea. And I want to turn to the economy. We have an economy in Delaware, quite frankly, that is languishing behind all 50 states in this country. We've had 0.0% economic growth. We need to really have a robust economy. We need to grow our economy, bring jobs to Delaware. Many of the social ills that we face are based on lack of employment, lack of jobs. So a lot revolves around our economy. It's not healthy at the current time.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Ms. Purcell.
So it's interesting that they equate racism with people not getting health care. I want a transparent system where we can open up an app and see where our tax dollars are going. So when we send billions and trillions of dollars overseas, they've never gotten into the hands of the people that they're intended for. If I was to take a glass jar and put it in the middle of town and everybody put 28% in, and every paycheck you put 28% in, you will see that there is enough money there for healthcare and for education, but our elected officials are walking away with the entire cookie jar. So the reason we don't have money for healthcare for all or for education for all is because I believe the money is being embezzled. All the research that I've done with my banking experience shows that it's being embezzled, and a transparent system would stop this and then give the underprivileged people the healthcare and education that they need.
Thank you very much, Ms. Purcell. The next question deals with the connection between voting rights and the criminal justice system. According to the most recent data, over 5 million people will be barred from voting in the 2020 election due to a felony conviction. While some states have changed their laws and practices to expand voting access, a felony conviction still can deny the franchise to people in almost every state. Should federal legislation challenge the barriers to voting rights linked to the criminal justice system? Ms. Purcell.
I believe that if somebody has served their time, then they serve their penance. And then if that means that they should be able to come into back into our society and hopefully be useful to society and to vote. So I would support legislation that allows people who have actually served their time to vote.
Thank you, Ms. Purcell. Mr. Murphy.
Yes, this question is personal to me. I have a family member that got her voting rights back after she served and paid a price for committing a crime, a felony crime. There is a procedure in the state of Delaware to go through to have your rights to vote put back in place. I think anyone that has committed a crime, paid a price, they should go through the process and once again be able to vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. Actually, this was touched on by both of you earlier, but we can expand on this question. What do you see as the best path to recovery of the U.S. economy following the COVID-19 crisis? What role, if any, should legislative actions play in the recovery efforts? Mr. Murphy.
Yes, as I mentioned, we really need to return to a healthy, vibrant economy in Delaware. When I go to Washington, D.C., I'll work with the president, whoever that president may be. We need to bring manufacturing jobs back to Delaware. We need to have an economy where we have a strong middle class. One thing I'd like to do, and I've discussed it with Senator Tom Cotton already from Arkansas, our manufacturing jobs, our manufacturing of drugs, our life-saving drugs in China. Not only is it a national threat to our security, but those good manufacturing jobs, they should be brought back to the United States. And why not bring those jobs, those good paying manufacturing jobs, why not bring those back to Delaware? We were not in good shape economically before COVID. We have a long way to go post-COVID. And I'll hit the ground running in Washington and work with the president to bring those good jobs back to Delaware.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. Ms. Purcell.
I don't know if the people noticed, but the stores that got to remain open during the lockdown had links to Chinese supply chains. The big box stores, Lowe's, Costco's, BJ's, and the mom and pop small businesses were either overregulated or forced to shut down. So a lot of the mom and pop businesses have gone bankrupt while the big box stores have made billions off of the lockdown. I would support legislation that gives money to the small businesses that were not able to be open and direct payments to the individual taxpayers for that. I mean, our economy was in great shape before COVID-19 and it is recovering, but I just noticed that the stores linked to with Chinese supply chains were the ones that were permitted to stay open. And this is a problem because China's bought up a lot of our country, 28% GDP prior to COVID. So after COVID, it's probably a lot higher. The GM plant, which was sold, which is now housing Amazon, SAIC, the #1 auto manufacturer in China, purchased. So this is a
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Purcell. The next question is a little bit long, a little patience. It has to do with campaign finance. The 2010 U.S. Supreme Court decision known as Citizens United versus the FEC reversed century-old campaign finance restrictions and enabled corporations and other outside groups like labor unions to spend unlimited funds on federal elections. The decision assumed that independent spending would not be corrupt and that spending would be transparent. Both assumptions have been challenged. Do you see any need for campaign finance reform? And please explain why or why not. Ms. Purcell.
I do see need for campaign finance reform because money is being funneled in through PACs into candidates that in some cases weren't even born here in the United States. So in 7 years, you can get a congressional seat. So what's happening is our enemy has figured out how to bring people in through the immigration channels and give them all the IDs and the history that they need ship in constituents because the money is there, and then raise that person up and get a congressional seat, which is not good at all. So I believe that the campaign finance should be strictly monitored and strictly traced to so that that money is you can determine exactly where it comes from.
Thank you very much, Ms. Purcell. Mr. Murphy.
Well, campaign finance reform, it seems like we talk about this in every single election in my lifetime, and everybody is for it, and very few people in Washington do anything about it. I guess that comes with incumbency. But like my opponent, Lisa Blunt Rochester, who has thousands and thousands of dollars in contributions from outside of Delaware, it's hard to run for Congress against an incumbent, and that would be anywhere in the United States. In Delaware, we have a small state, so it doesn't quite take the millions and millions of dollars that it might take in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. But certainly, campaign finance reform, much like in pro sports where they have a salary cap, okay? All teams can only spend so much money on a particular team's payroll. I think if you run for Congress, there should be a certain amount you can spend. If you run for US Senate, there should be a certain amount you can spend. If you run for governor, there should be a certain amount you can spend. I think we really need to even the playing field and have all people have a voice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. We're going to shift our focus a little bit for the next question, and we're going to go from national to international. The 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council are China, France, Russia, Britain, and the United States. All permanent members have the veto power over resolutions coming before the Council. Some have proposed that permanent membership should be expanded to include such countries as Brazil, India, or Japan in order to better reflect global economic and political realities. What is your view on expanding permanent membership on the United Nations Security Council? Mr. Murphy.
Yes, I remember as a young boy, the United Nations under the John F. Kennedy was president, and after World War II, the United Nations played a vital part in the security of our world during the Cold War. In recent years, the United Nations, what they can do and could do has really diminished. We need to make the United Nations a functioning part of our world once again. And I would be in favor of increasing the number of nations to the UN Security Council. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. Ms. Purcell.
I too would be in favor of increasing the membership to Brazil and India and Japan. I believe that those are great nations that can contribute to our world affairs. I would prefer them over China at the moment. So, but yes, I am in favor of increasing their membership, allowing them in.
Thank you, Ms. Purcell.
May I have a rebuttal?
Oh, absolutely. Mr. Murphy, rebuttal.
Yeah. You know, one thing I failed to mention in light of COVID and what China has done to the world in terms of people dying and sickness and nations' economies around the world, I think China has to be dealt with severely. And quite frankly, we could allow other nations to come into the United Nations Security Council, but I think China should be expelled.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. The next question really has to do with the philosophy of legislating. This is a new concept. If your own views on an issue that comes to a vote would differ from your party's official platform, how would you balance loyalty to your party, your donors, your constituents, and your own conscience when they conflict? What is your philosophy of legislating on this issue? Ms. Purcell.
Well, I am the voice of the people, not my voice. So in this age of technology, we should be able to have an app again, that if I have an issue, there's an issue being presented through Congress or the Senate, that the people should be able to key in and vote directly on that issue. So we are the people's voice, not our voice. And this is the biggest problem that we have with our Congress and some senators today, is that they're doing what they want to do and not what the people want to do. The mask situation is a great example. I would say 90% of the people that I speak to don't like the mask, don't want the mask, yet the elected officials are pushing the mask law beyond science, what science says, that whether the mask is safe or not. The science says it's not. So, you know, we're supposed to be the people's voice, not our voice.
Thank you, Ms. Purcell. Mr. Murphy?
That's a great question, and it's likely to happen probably more than once. I'll become very well informed on the issues and the impact of that legislation, whatever it may be, and I'll discuss it openly, with all my constituents. I'll make the best decision based on the information that I have and my values, and that's all I can promise.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. This is the last question coming up, and it's more in the form of a closing statement. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to answer this question and to add any philosophical contributions you want to make to the discussion. If elected, what are your primary goals for your term of office? We'll start out with Mr. Murphy.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having this debate this evening. I really do appreciate it. I've been campaigning now for almost 16 months up and down the state of Delaware. And the number one issue that we face pre-COVID and post-COVID is our economy in this state. We desperately need manufacturing to return to the state of Delaware. We need real jobs to have a vibrant middle class in this country. We are, as I mentioned earlier, we are last behind all other states in economic activity in the past 5 years. 2019, we had 0.0% economic growth. When our young people graduate from high school, graduate from college, they can't stay in Delaware. There's not any opportunity for them to stay here. So post-COVID, we will need strong leadership on every level to bring our economy back in the state. We have a great location here in Delaware where we're located. We have a lot of resources here in Delaware. There's no reason with the proper leadership that we cannot, once again, revive our economy and provide jobs for our people in this country. And the differences, quite frankly, in this race between Lisa Blunt Rochester and Lee Murphy are very stark, starting with our economy. She has not brought one job to Delaware in 4 years in office. I'm pro-life, long-term abortion, abortion at birth. I'm for long-term help for addicts. She has done nothing to help the people addiction problem in this country, in our state, for those who are addicted to opioids. I am pro-veteran. She has put illegals behind veterans time and time again. Now, she has put illegals in front of veterans time and time again. I will go to Washington, D.C. I will work with whoever is president. I will work with whoever is in Congress, Democrat, Republicans. We have to have a strong representation in Washington. We have to have strong connection between Washington and our state to bring it back to the prominence it once had. I will work for all Delawareans when I go to Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy. We appreciate your comments. Ms. Purcell, same question.
Okay, I would strive towards higher academic standards and reducing the cost of education. I believe that our education system is not churning out children that are able to survive in our world. I believe that we should divide it into sections. So if they complete section 101.111 before they go to 101.112. So regardless of their age, I would divide the classes into sections that were able to progress by you knowing the information instead of your age. I would reach the goal of affording everyone in America equal health care at reasonable prices. I want to establish a special investigations force to ensure the transparency and efficiency of the spending of our nation's tax dollars. Again, we're in a computer age where if we're giving $1 billion or $1 trillion out to somebody, we should see exactly where that money is going and cancel checks as it goes along the way. If you purchase a home, you have to explain where your $25 cash deposit is. So why aren't we holding our government officials to the same transparency? I want to reach a sustainable equilibrium between economy and the environment and energy that best suits the people and our planet. I would like to foster world peace by getting people to embrace our diversity and just encourage others to seek their true passions and rise to their highest levels. So when I go to Capitol Hill, these are things that I'm going to be pushing for. And the first one is going to be the transparent system, so we can trace our tax dollars. I've been auditing them as they go to overseas. In Iran, $1.8 billion cash, never got to the people. Haiti, the money never got to the people. Puerto Rico, the supplies were found in a storage bin. The supplies never got to the people. So over and over and over again, when our tax dollars are sent overseas, they appear to be embezzled. They're given into the hands of thugs. This is our tax money that could be used for healthcare for the seniors and education for the students. I also developed in 1997 after-school programs that are very effective because they watch the children. And I believe that we should have 24/7 facilities for our children. Everyone is spending their daycare money separately, and this is causing it to be more expensive. If we gathered that daycare places into the center of the city, the expense would be drastically reduced. The children would be watched. The crime would go down because they wouldn't be picked up by gangs, and we would have a healthy, happy society. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Purcell, for your creative ideas. I want to thank both of you for your participation today. It really made my night. So thank you so much. And now for the rest of you out there, we have come to the close of tonight's program. Let me thank both the viewing public and the candidates for your involvement in this definitely learning experience. Our gratitude also goes to the League of Women Voters and AAUW, the Central Delaware NAACP, the National Panhellenic Council, and Restoring Central Dover for supporting this example of grassroots democracy. These debates can be accessed tomorrow on the League websites and on Facebook. And please note that the League of Women Voters of Delaware will present a virtual candidate debate for governor, lieutenant governor, and insurance commissioner of Delaware tomorrow, October 29th. And you can still send in your candidate questions to kcdelwv@gmail.com. And one caution, these debates are being recorded using Zoom. No public is in attendance. Recording of these events may not be used without the express approval of the League of Women Voters. The League will only allow audio and/or video of this forum to be broadcast in its entirety, except by media reporting on the event. Audio and video of the federal and statewide debates will be streamed on League websites and Facebook on Friday, October 30th. Most importantly, please remember to vote by Tuesday, November 3rd. Thank you and good night.